Picture it, a vast Spartan army, bronze shields gleaming, facing down the might of the Persian Empire. But this isn't the heroic last stand at Thermopylae. This isn't a story about a glorious defeat. This is the story of what came next. This is the story of revenge. This is the Battle of Plataea, where Sparta came not just to die for Greece, but to make the Persian Empire pay for their king's death, and in doing so, save Western civilization for good. The story of Plataea is one of the most crucial, yet strangely overlooked, battles in all of history. It's a tale of vengeance, brilliant strategy, and impossible odds. If you believe these stories need to be told, do us a huge favor by subscribing and hitting that like button. Your support helps us bring these epic moments back to life. The hook and set up the ashes of Athens. A year before our story begins, in 480 BC, a fire raged that could be seen for miles. It wasn't a wildfire, but the fiery signature of an angry empire. The city of Athens, the jewel of Greece and the cradle of a radical new idea called democracy, was now just a pillar of smoke. The Persian king, Xerxes, had marched his colossal army south, swatting aside the doomed but glorious stand of Leonidas and his 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, and now stood as the master of a broken Greece. He had watched as his soldiers looted the temples of the Acropolis and put the city to the torch, a brutal message to anyone who dared defy the Achaemenid Empire. But Xerxes' victory wasn't total. Just as his power on land seemed unstoppable, his navy was shattered in the narrow straits of Salamis. A brilliant Athenian-led trap had turned the Persian fleet's numerical advantage into a fatal weakness. Staring at the wreckage of his naval power, and fearing his supply lines could be cut, Xerxes made a calculated choice. He would return to Persia, taking a large part of his army with him. The conquest of Greece, however, was far from over. He left behind his most trusted general, a man whose ambition was as vast as the empire he served, Mardonius. Mardonius wasn't just some subordinate. He was the nephew of the previous king, Darius I, and a cousin of Xerxes himself. He had been a key voice pushing for the invasion, a man who truly believed in Persia's destiny to rule the known world. Xerxes entrusted him with an elite force of up to 120,000 of the empire's finest soldiers, with one simple command: finish the job. Bring Greece to its knees. Mardonius spent the winter in northern Thessaly, resting and regrouping his army. But he was a shrewd commander, not just a brute. He knew the Greek alliance was a fragile thing, a partnership of bitter rivals held together only by a common enemy. His first move wasn't with a sword, but with a dangerously tempting offer. He sent an envoy, King Alexander I of Macedon, to the displaced Athenians who were now refugees on the island of Salamis. The offer was stunning. Mardonius promised to rebuild their city, grant them vast new lands, and accept them as allies of Persia, equals, not subjects. For a people whose homes were ash and whose future was uncertain, it was a golden bridge, a chance to escape the war with not just their lives, but with immense power and wealth. All eyes turned to Athens. With their fleet, the Persian war machine would be unstoppable. Without it, Greece was doomed. A delegation from Sparta arrived, holding their breath, waiting for the Athenian response. It came in one of the most defiant speeches in history. The Athenians, standing among the ruins of their former lives, looked the envoy in the eye and gave their answer. So long as the sun holds its present course, they declared, we shall never come to terms with Xerxes. They would rather die as free men than live as gilded subjects of an empire. But defiance came with a demand. They turned to the Spartans and made it plain, our city is gone. Our people are homeless. We chose to fight. Now you must march with us. If Sparta hid behind its walls and failed to send its army, Athens would be forced to find its own peace. The threat was crystal clear: fight with us, or we'll take the Persian deal, and you'll face Mardonius alone. Mardonius, his diplomatic gamble crushed, responded with cold fury. He marched his army south again and finished the destruction of Athens, leveling whatever was left standing. The time for talking was over. The fate of Greece would be decided not with words, but with spear and shield. The only question was, would the Spartans answer the call? The gathering stormed the unlikely alliance. In Sparta, the decision to march was anything but simple. The Spartans were famously insular, their entire society built to defend their homeland. Marching an army north of the Isthmus of Corinth, leaving their own lands exposed, was a move they hated. On top of that, it was the time of the Hyacinthia, a sacred festival. To go to war during this period was a grave sin, the same religious obligation that had made them late to the Battle of Marathon years before. As the Spartans celebrated, envoys from Athens, Megara, and Plataea arrived, their patience gone. They delivered a furious ultimatum, reminding the Spartans of their promises and of the Athenian sacrifice. If Sparta didn't march right now, Athens would ally with Persia. The alliance that had won at Salamis would shatter, and Greece would be plunged into civil war under the shadow of a foreign invader. For days, the Spartan council just stalled. They'd listen, promise an answer tomorrow, and then delay again. It looked like Sparta was abandoning them, content to let the Persians burn out in Attica while they stayed safe behind their new wall at the Isthmus. But behind the scenes, a prominent Spartan warned the Ephors, the 5 elected magistrates who held power even over the kings, of the disastrous consequences of inaction. He argued that if Athens fell, the wall would be useless. The Persian army, now with the Athenian fleet at its command, could simply sail around it. Sparta would be trapped, isolated, and destroyed. The warning hit home. That very night, without telling the Athenian envoys, the Spartans acted. Under the command of Pausanias, the regent for King Leonidas's young son, an army marched out of the city. It was 5,000 elite Spartiates, full Spartan citizens, each accompanied by 7 helots, state-owned serfs who served as light infantry. In total, an incredible force of 40,000 men from Laconia was on the move, the largest army Sparta had ever sent beyond its borders. The next morning, when the Athenian envoys came to make their final, bitter complaint, the Ephors simply told them the army had already left. The stunned and overjoyed envoys raced to catch up. This was the spark that lit the bonfire of Greek resistance. As news spread that the Spartans were marching, the fragile alliance became a real army. 8,000 Athenian hoplites, hardened by war and hungry for vengeance, joined under the statesman Aristides. The ever-loyal Plataeans, whose city had also been burned, sent every man they had, about 600 strong. From the Peloponnese came 5,000 hoplites from Corinth. Megara and Sicyon each sent 3,000. Tegea, a longtime rival of Sparta, now marched with them. City-states large and small mustered their forces. By modern estimates, around 40,000 heavily armed hoplites formed the army's core, supported by tens of thousands of light-armed troops. All told, an army of perhaps 80,000 Greeks had gathered, the largest Greek army ever assembled. The supreme commander was the Spartan regent, Pausanias. As the nephew of Leonidas, the blood of a hero ran in his veins. Now, he carried the weight of not just avenging his uncle, but securing the future of all Greece. When Mardonius learned this massive Greek force was on the move, he fell back from Athens into Boeotia. This was friendly territory. The powerful city of Thebes was his ally. More importantly, the wide, flat plains were perfect for his greatest weapon, the cavalry. He built a huge, fortified wooden camp on the north bank of the Asopus River, near the small town of Plataea, and waited. He was confident he could lure the Greeks down from the hills and annihilate them on the open plain. The Greeks, led by Pausanias, marched over the passes of Mount Cithaeron and took up positions on the high ground, overlooking the Persian camp. The 2 largest armies to ever face off on Greek soil were now separated by a small river. A tense silence fell. The final showdown for Greece was about to begin. The standoff, a war of nerves. For 11 grueling days, the 2 armies stared each other down across the Asopus River. This wasn't a battle of swords, but of wills. Pausanias, the Spartan commander, knew his hoplites were a walking fortress in close combat. But on the open plains, they were sitting ducks for Mardonius's thousands of skilled horsemen. So Pausanias refused to take the bait. He kept his forces on the slopes of Mount Cithaeron, where the uneven ground neutralized the Persian cavalry. Mardonius was happy to wait. He hoped the stress and inactivity would splinter the fragile Greek alliance. He began a campaign of psychological warfare, sending his cavalry on lightning-fast, hit-and-run raids to taunt the Greeks and test their resolve. The commander of this cavalry was Mecistius, a rock-star general in the Persian army. He was a spectacular sight on his magnificent horse with its golden bridle, his own body covered in golden scale armor under a purple tunic. He was the very image of Persian power and arrogance. Mecistius focused his attacks on the Megarians, who held an exposed part of the Greek line. The Persian horsemen would charge, shower them with arrows and javelins, and retreat before the hoplites could engage. Pinned down and taking casualties, the Megarians sent a desperate message to Pausanias. "We can't hold this position. Relieve us, or we'll be forced to run." Pausanias asked for volunteers. No one moved. The idea of facing the elite Persian cavalry was terrifying. Finally, the Athenians, always rivals to Spartan glory, accepted the challenge. A select force of 300 Athenian hoplites, with their archers, moved to help. What happened next was a crucial turning point. As the Persian cavalry charged again, the Athenian archers let their arrows fly. One hit Mecistius's horse in the flank. The animal reared in pain, throwing the great general to the ground. Instantly, the Athenians swarmed him. But Mecistius fought back fiercely, his armor deflecting their spear thrusts. It looked like he might survive, until an Athenian soldier stabbed him through the eye slit of his helmet. Mecistius, the proud commander, was dead. The Persian cavalry, not realizing their leader had fallen, charged back to recover his body. A brutal fight exploded around the fallen general. The Athenians, now badly outnumbered, held on, screaming for help. As more Greek hoplites poured in to support them, the tide turned. The Persian horsemen were beaten back, leaving their commander's body in Greek hands. The death of Mecistius sent a shockwave through both camps. For the Greeks, it was a massive morale boost. They had faced the most feared part of the Persian army and won. They put Mecistius's body on a cart and paraded it along their lines, a very clear message: the invaders were not invincible. The Persians were devastated, mourning their general by shaving their own heads in the manes of their war horses. Feeling confident, the Greeks advanced their position, moving down to the Asopus Ridge, closer to the Persian camp but still on defensible ground. For 8 more days, the stalemate held. But Mardonius kept using his cavalry to pick off Greek supply convoys. The massive Greek army was starting to run low on food. Then, Mardonius made his most decisive move yet. He ordered a major cavalry assault not on the Greek line, but on their lifeline, the Gargaffian spring, their only source of water. The Persian horsemen swept in, fought with furious intensity, and succeeded in fouling and capturing the spring. Suddenly, the Greek position was untenable. They were cut off from supplies and, more critically, from water. Thirst and hunger now threatened to do what the Persian army could not: break the alliance. Pausanias knew he had to move. The war of nerves was over. The crisis point: the disastrous retreat. Losing the Gargaffian spring was a catastrophe. Tens of thousands of men were now without water, low on food, and constantly harassed by cavalry. Pausanias called a war council. They had to move. They came up with a risky plan to be executed in the dead of night. First, secure the supply passes. Second, the main army would withdraw to a new, more defensible position called the island. Finally, the Spartans on the right wing would follow. It was a complex maneuver that relied on discipline and coordination in the dark, things that were about to fall apart completely. As night fell, chaos began. The Greek center, made up of smaller contingents, moved first. But instead of going to the island, they panicked. Terrified of the Persian cavalry, they didn't stop at the new position but retreated all the way back to the town of Plataea, effectively taking themselves out of the fight. On the left wing, the Athenians were suspicious. They didn't trust the Spartans and suspected this was a trick to abandon them. They refused to move until they saw the Spartans themselves begin to pull back. But Pausanias had his own crisis. A stubborn Spartan officer named Amampharitus flatly refused to retreat. To him, Any retreat was cowardice and a dishonor to Sparta. He would not turn his back to the enemy. For hours, Pausanias pleaded and argued with him, explaining it was a strategic move, not a flight, but Amorpharidas wouldn't budge. As dawn broke, the plan was a complete disaster. The Greek center was gone, the Athenians were standing still, and the Spartans were paralyzed by infighting. Pausanias, out of time, made a huge gamble. He ordered the main body of his Spartan and Tygian force to start retreating, hoping Amorpharidas would be shamed into following rather than being left all alone. It worked. Seeing the army march away, Amorpharidas finally gave in and followed. But it was too late. The sun was rising, and the Greek movements were now in plain sight. From his camp, Mardonius saw what he thought was his final victory. The Greek positions were empty. The Spartans were strung out and exposed, looking like they were fleeing in total disarray. To Mardonius, it was a rout. He believed the Greek alliance had finally shattered under the pressure, just as he predicted. Mocking the Spartans' reputation for bravery, he cast aside his patient strategy and made a fatal mistake. He ordered an immediate, all-out pursuit. He personally led the charge with his 1,000 elite immortals. As he surged forward, the rest of his army, without waiting for orders, followed in a great, disorganized wave. They weren't advancing for a battle. They were running down what they thought was a broken and fleeing enemy. But the Spartans weren't broken, and they weren't fleeing. They were cornered. And Mardonius was charging headlong into a lion's den. The climax, the Spartan stand. The Persian charge was a tsunami of men crashing towards the hills. Mardonius, on a brilliant white horse, led the attack, his best infantry right behind him, sure they were about to mop up the last bit of Greek resistance. He had spotted Pausanias' force, the Spartans and the loyal Tygians, isolated on a ridge. This was the kill zone. As Persian cavalry swarmed them, Pausanias found himself in a desperate spot. He sent a frantic messenger to the Athenians for help, but they were miles away and had just run into Mardonius' Greek allies, the tough Theban phalanx. The Spartans were on their own. The Persians set up a makeshift wall with their large wicker shields and unleashed a storm of arrows. The sky went dark. Men screamed and fell as the missiles rained down. The Spartans were taking heavy casualties, pinned down and being bled dry from a distance. In this moment of crisis, Pausanias prepared to make a sacrifice to the gods, a Spartan tradition before any attack. But as the priests sacrificed one animal after another, the omens were all bad. Minutes stretched on. All around him, his men were dying. The Tygians, unable to stand it any longer, finally broke ranks and charged the Persian line themselves. Pausanias, seeing his army start to fray, raised his eyes from the bloody sacrifices toward a temple on the plain. He prayed to the goddess Hera, begging her not to let their hopes be crushed in this final hour. As if in answer, the omens suddenly turned favorable. The gods had given their permission. The word flashed down the Spartan line. Attack! What happened next was the collision of two worlds of warfare. The Spartans rose as one, locked their shields, lowered their long spears, and advanced. The Spartan phalanx, a disciplined wall of bronze and iron, crashed into the Persian shield wall. The wicker shield shattered. The battle devolved into a brutal, face-to-face brawl where the difference in equipment was horrifyingly clear. The Persian soldiers, in cloth armor with short spears and daggers, were completely outmatched. Their weapons couldn't reach past the wall of Spartan shields, and their daggers were useless against bronze armor. The Spartans began a methodical, terrifying slaughter. They pushed relentlessly forward, a human grinding machine. Still, the Persians, especially the elite troops around Mardonius, fought with incredible bravery. Herodotus says they grabbed the Spartan spears with their bare hands, trying to break them. They refused to give ground. The battle raged, its outcome hanging on a knife's edge. But the center of gravity for the entire Persian army was Mardonius. Surrounded by his royal bodyguard, he fought like a hero, trying to break the Spartan line through sheer force of will. As long as he was alive, the Persians held. Pausanias and the Spartans knew this. They pressed their attack right where Mardonius fought. And then, the decisive moment came. A Spartan named Mnestheus saw his chance. He either threw a rock or lunged with his spear and struck Mardonius. The blow was fatal. The Persian general, the architect of the invasion, fell dead from his white horse. The death of their commander shattered Persian morale in an instant. The bodyguard fought on until every last one was cut down around Mardonius's body. But for the rest of the army, the fight was over. Panic set in. The Persians broke and fled, desperate to reach the safety of their wooden camp across the river. At the same time, the Athenians had finally overcome the Thebans. As word of Mardonius's death spread, the will of Persia's allies broke too, and they also retreated. The entire invading army was now in a full, panicked flight. The Greek crisis had become a stunning, decisive victory. But the slaughter wasn't over yet. The resolution and legacy the price of freedom. The rout was total. The Persian army dissolved into a terrified mob running for their lives. The Spartans, Tygians, and Athenians surged forward, chasing them across the plain. Most of the fleeing soldiers ran straight for their fortified camp, which was about to become a death trap. One high-ranking Persian commander, Artabazus, had advised Mardonius against the reckless charge. Seeing his general fall, he knew the day was lost. Instead of joining the flight to the camp, he wheeled his force of 40,000 men around and began a disciplined retreat north, marching his men all the way back to Asia. His foresight saved them. They were some of the only ones to escape the disaster. For everyone else, the wooden stockade was the end of the line. The Greeks converged on the camp. The Spartans struggled to breach the walls, but the Athenians, with their experience in siege warfare, soon arrived and smashed their way through. What followed was a massacre. Penned inside their own defenses, the demoralized and leaderless Persians were slaughtered. Herodotus claims that out of the entire army Mardonius commanded, only about 3,000 survived, not counting the 40,000 who escaped with Artabazus. The field of Plataea and the Persian camp became a graveyard. After the fighting stopped, the Greeks entered the camp and discovered unimaginable riches. There were tents decorated with gold and silver, luxurious couches, and bowls, goblets, and cups all made of solid gold. They found bracelets, necklaces, and swords with jewel-encrusted hilts. Mardonius's own war tent was a treasure trove, a glimpse into the opulent world of Persian nobility. A tenth of the treasure was set aside for the gods. From this, a magnificent bronze monument, nearly 8 meters tall, was crafted, the serpent column. It was formed from 3 intertwined serpents, their bodies inscribed with the names of the 31 Greek city-states that had fought for their freedom. It was placed at the sacred site of Delphi, an eternal testament to their victory. The rest of the plunder was distributed among the cities, a massive injection of wealth that would help fuel the cultural golden age to come. The Battle of Plataea, fought in 479 BC, was the final nail in the coffin of the Second Persian invasion. Legend says that on the very same day, across the Aegean Sea at Mycale, the Greek fleet landed and destroyed the remnants of the Persian navy, ending the threat by sea as well. By land and by sea, the Persian war machine was utterly shattered. The consequences were monumental. Plataea secured Greek independence for good. Never again would a Persian king attempt a full-scale invasion of the Greek mainland. The victory reshaped the Greek world. Sparta, its revenge complete, largely retreated back into its shell. But Athens stepped onto the world stage, forming the Delian League to liberate other Greek cities. This league would transform into the Athenian Empire, ushering in the Golden Age of Athens, a period of unparalleled achievement in philosophy, drama, and democracy that laid the foundations of Western civilization. Plataea was more than a military victory, it was an ideological one. It was the triumph of the Greek ideal of freedom, *Eleutheria*, over what they saw as the despotism of the Persian Empire. It proved that a small group of bickering, free city-states, when united, could defeat the largest empire on earth. The sacrifice of Leonidas and his 300 had not been in vain. It became a rallying cry that led to this final, decisive victory. The revenge for their fallen king was complete, and in achieving it, the Greeks didn't just save their homes, they cleared the path for a future they could never have imagined. the Battle of Plataea stands as one of history's great turning points. It's the moment a quest for Spartan revenge ended up saving a civilization. The victory ensured that the culture of classical Greece would survive, flourish, and echo through millennia to shape our world. Without Plataea, ideas like democracy and individual liberty might have been extinguished before they even had a chance to burn bright. What other overlooked battles do you think changed the world? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to keep exploring the moments that defined our world, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more epic history. Thanks for watching.